decision. And the governor signs this bill. Oh my Lord, we thought we had started another war. You got this congressman that's wanting to boycott the state. We were skewered for forever. Millions were spent when I ran in 2010 to kick me out of office because I had called for a boycott. If I was even the implication, as Supervisor Wilcox can attest, that something is going to happen. The first convention that canceled was Dr. Martin Luther King's fraternity. The law was signed. They had all these plans, hundreds of thousands of dollars already invested in their 5-day convention year. They pulled out that next morning. I make that point because I think I'm glad, and hopefully the business leadership of this state understands that what they did in light of 1062, that they should look at the unfinished business of what has happened in the state and refresh themselves on how they approach 1070 and what they need to walk themselves backwards to align once more and to begin to undo a state law that spawned others and created not only for this state but for this nation a petri dish example by ALEC and the private prison industry to write legislation to benefit themselves. And I make the contrast not out of bitterness. I make the contrast because the lives of millions of immigrants, 400,000 individuals from this state after that law left the state. And I write it because there was a human consequence to that law, just as there would have been a human consequence to 1062. This didn't happen. This did. It's unfinished business. And we are going to, or certainly I'm going to remind the leadership, corporate, business, chambers, that all had wonderful things to say about me, about the fact that they took a brave and noble stand, and we're waiting them to come and finish the business on the other end of that. So let me talk a little bit, because the perpetual question for Congress is, where's immigration reform? The perpetual answer is, who knows? But let's kind of struggle ourselves through this process. H.R. 15, which is a companion legislation in the House of Representatives, and right now, if there's a bottleneck, it is obviously in the House of Representatives. It's the companion piece without the Corker Amendment that Boehner said he won't call up, so there's a discharge petition. There's about 189 names on it, maybe 190 by now. It needs 218 for it to automatically come to the floor for a vote. And so that is the effort right now, is to get Republicans to walk over and sign that discharge petition. And I want to be as frank as I can with you. I think that's very doubtful. And I mean that in the most sincere way, and not because I don't think we should vote on it. We should. But you're asking an extra step. Some Republicans have indicated, yes, I would vote for it if it was on the floor. That reality versus the reality of walking across, signing a discharge petition against their party leadership, which is considered betrayal, is going to be very, very difficult. And that's why I said I find that doubtful. I and a couple other people introduced 3163, comprehensive reform as soon as possible. We have 56 co-sponsors. We did that as a contrast to the Senate bill, so there would be a comparison. We did that and it's identical to what we did in 2008. And we did that so that for two reasons. One, to have a place where people that weren't totally comfortable with the Senate version, particularly on the enforcement side, the streamlining issue that's still part of it, to have a place that they could be for immigration reform and feel that they politically could support something. But that doesn't stand a ghost of a chance to ever reach the floor for a vote. And I say that, but we need it. We have 56 co-sponsors, colleagues that have signed on, but we did it with the express purpose of presenting a contrast to ourselves and to you to some extent, where we keep negotiating as if nothing has ever been negotiated before. And I want you to look at the bill that we filed, 3163, and look at the Senate bill. And look at the stark differences of what's not in the Senate bill. Those are things that were taken out as a consequence of deliberate discussions and negotiations. We wanted people to see that, so that the accusation that you don't want to compromise, so the accusation that you don't ever want to be part of this process, you're just being a purist. And on the altar of purity, you're sacrificing immigration reform, is a patent lie. There has been an effort. Should negotiations go on? Absolutely. But to say that we're starting from a sum zero toward a negotiated point, I want people to know that that's not the case. That there has been much give on the issue of immigration reform on the part of advocates in the Congress. So now let's talk a little bit about the theoretical, the rumored, and what's being talked about. The piecemeal. We're going to do things in pieces. And Chairman of Judiciary Goodlatte has indicated that. Boehner has said yes, no, maybe, once in a while. Kind of an indication that piecemeal is the way that we're going to go, because they were going to such comprehensive. So we have various, the first bill we're going to get is probably on Wednesday or Thursday. Wednesday, Judiciary Committee passed a bill on party lines, 1714. And it was a bill basically to defund and within ICE and Homeland Security, define the Deputy Assistant Director for Custody and Immigrants, and to defund the Public Advocate Office. What's a Public Advocate? To prevent sexual assault, abuses, and deaths for people that are under detention by the Department of Homeland Security. That's the first piece of legislation we're going to see on the floor. And I mentioned that because you got to put it in the context of everything else that we're dealing with. The other piecemeal is the SAFE Act, which codifies into law everything we've been fighting for the last 8 years. In terms of transfer of jurisdiction, streamlining, marginalizing civil rights and liberties, and basically turning over to local jurisdiction a major part of the enforcement of immigration law. That's one of them. Streamlining, as I mentioned. The other one that's being talked about is triggers. When is the border secure? And how do we codify that? And how do we empirically know when the border's secure? I would suggest that's an impossible answer. Issue of citizenship, how you define it, where it lies in the process of deliberation and in the process of negotiation. As part of the disclosure, I've said I'm not going to vote for anything that prohibits it, period. And I say that because I think the precedent that we're setting in this issue is a precedent that's going to have ramifications across the line. I understand the desperation, my God. I understand the families divided. And I understand the need to unify. But the issue of citizenship, take away pathway, take away other issues around it. The basic fundamental issue and a prohibition of a right to citizenship by a person who immigrates to this country, does their time for this group of people to suddenly have a status in this country that